Hello, everyone. Like I do this time of year, many of you know I go over the results of the first half of the Major League Baseball season, and a lot of surprises have went down in the National League, and we'll get into that. There really hasn't been that many surprises in the American League. There might be about two we need to lead off with, possibly three. Yeah, three for sure. There's three of them. Actually, four. Yeah, four. We're going to get into in the American League. So, that being all said, let's get into how the first half went. So, in the American League East, surprisingly, unexpected, the Boston Red Sox finished with a record of 55-36. They hold a one-game lead over the Tampa Bay Rays, who finished with a record of 53-37. They have a half game back to catch the Red Sox. So let's get into the Red Sox and see their team leaders. So, one of the reasons why the Boston Red Sox seem to be doing very well is because of Xander Bogaerts, who actually won the World Series with the Red Sox back in 2018. So, he leads the whole team in average. Garrett Whitlock doesn't really count. That was a National League game he played. You have to look also at JD Martinez, former Detroit Tiger, who's really been reliable. I mean, he can get you a couple runs batted in. But the overall team leader right now, if you really want to look at their entire roster from top to bottom, would have to be none other than Rafael Devers, who has 22 home runs, 72 runs batted in, but he doesn't lead the team in average, which is kind of odd, but okay. Guess that really doesn't matter in terms of that. Now, in terms of the pitching, we know Chris Sale has been out, but Nathan Eovaldi has really been something. I mean, he used to be a former Yankee, okay? Former New York Yankee, and yet he's having a very good season so far. I mean, he's 9-5. His ERA is 3.66. But it's been Nick Pivetta who's really been taking the Red Sox on storm. He's 7-3 this year. So, Nick Pivetta has really been something interesting to watch this year. Really interesting. But it's been the Xander Bogaerts show in Boston, and it's been the Rafael Devers show in Boston. So, Tampa Bay Rays, and we'll move on to them and take a look at how their team is compiled. So we're not going to go over every team. We're just going to go over the ones that matter in the first half. And I'm not going to talk about the Yankees because all I will say about the Yankees is just watch Aaron Judge. Right? I know he's had a good first half, but I do apologize about that. Other than that, nothing's really exciting about the Yankees. What is really there to watch with the Yankees? They've been a mediocre team. And Chapman's been blowing saves before the end of the first half. Now, taking a look at the Rays roster, and the only thing you really see out of the ordinary is Brandon Lowe, who has 20 home runs, Mike Serino, who has 19 home runs, and then you have Austin Meadows, who has 16 home runs. Now, in terms of who leads the team in average, has been Joey Wendell at third base. But other than that, nothing really impresses you about the Rays on the offensive side. It's mostly been the starting pitching that you keep an eye on. And Rich Hill, very interesting background of him, he's done okay as a starter. He eats very good, valuable innings. But other than that, what is there to really look forward to on the Rays? It's mostly been the exciting Red Sox. But if the Yankees can somehow get themselves figured out in the second half, they're only 4.5 back of the second wild card. They got a pretty good chance to have a good second half. I would say don't count the Yankees out yet, but if they have a very bad mid to late July and they're not winning a lot of games in August, things are not going to look good for them. So they got to have a good second half right out the gate. Otherwise, things are just not going to look good. And I will mention, I'll show you the schedule. Second half, they're playing the Red Sox. Start the second half of the season. So that's going to be very alarming. Very alarming. Now, as expected, as we predicted way back in March, we knew the Chicago White Sox were going to be a very good team. We thought maybe the Indians were going to be good. But what is going on with the Minnesota Twins? They've been awful this year. You would think the Twins would be a competitive team with the White Sox in that division. But the Twins have been awful. And, okay, the Indians had a good way to end their first half. But the best team in the American League right now, outside of the Red Sox, the second best is the White Sox. So, Chicago. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about the Chicago White Sox. And I knew it was going to be that way. I knew it was going to be that way about the White Sox. So taking a look at their lineup, Jake Berger is having a very historic season at third. Well, no, my bad. No. I'm looking at, how many games you play. Let's just start off with Tim Anderson. Let's be fair here. He's played 73 games. So he's leading the team in average, 310. Home runs right now for the White Sox. Their slugger is Jose Abreu. He has 15 home runs. He has 66 RBIs. So Jose Abreu is right there, as you can see. That's Jose Abreu. Sorry about that, just fixing everything. But we thought the pitching would be the main thing here. If you look at the pitching, Lance Lynn has had a very good first half. He has a 1.99 ERA. That's very impressive. Carlos Rendon, he has a 7-3 record. Not too bad. Then you have Dylan Chase, 7-4 record. But the big surprise has been the mediocre start of their prime pitcher, and that is Lucas Giolito. He is 7-6 with a 4.15 ERA. So he needs to have a good second half, and I think he's definitely capable of that, considering the White Sox can take care of their business very easily. But how about the reemergence of Dallas Keuchel? I know he has a 7-3 record, but his ERA is pretty high at 4.25. So, that perspective, you got to think that the White Sox are going to hopefully have a good second half. And looking at the White Sox overall as a team, keep in mind, the Chicago White Sox were in that playoff bracket last year. They weren't in the playoff bracket. But let's keep in mind here, the last time the Chicago White Sox won their division, you got to go all the way back to 2008. That was the last time the White Sox won their division. So, I would say be careful. but I think they're in a good spot for now. Let's just see what the Indians do, because I do want to see what... I just want to see how Shane Bieber's doing. I'm not going to take a look at the whole team, because I just want to see if Shane Bieber can have a good second half, because Shane Bieber is a good pitcher. He is a good pitcher, and I remember last year with the Yankees, I was like, ooh, they have to face him in the playoff bracket. So let's see. I'm just taking a look. Not going to be too long about it. Okay, so Jose Ramirez is 19 home runs. But other than that, who leads the team in average? Harold Ramirez. Okay, so he's hitting 280. But this is a mediocre team. I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs. I'd be very surprised if they do. I'm just trying to look up Shane Bieber. Okay. Shane Bieber has a 7-4 record. He has a 3.28 ERA. So, could be interesting to see what Shane Bieber does. And then Zach Plesac, he needs to have a good second half. Wow. Aaron Cheval. That is surprising. He has a 10-2 record, but his ERA is 3.32. But Zach Plesac and Shane Bieber, they need to have a good second half. They need to win a lot of their games, because if they don't, they're not going to be around in the wild card discussion. I could see them in the wild card hunt, but if Bieber and Plesac, their other two supposed best pitchers, are not consistent enough, they're going to be in very big trouble. Very big. All right, so let's move on to the AL West. I don't want to talk about the Astros that much, because that's just going to get my blood boiling. All I'll just say is the A's were off to a slow start in April. They got hot in May, slimmered down a little bit in June, in July, but they're still in the playoff hunt. Right now, if you're looking at the two wild cards for the end of the first half, if everything ended today, you would be looking at an Oakland versus Tampa matchup. You would definitely be looking at that today, because the strength of records, Oakland has a strong record, Tampa has a strong record, so that would mean Tampa plays Oakland. I want to talk about the other surprise in the American League. You know what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about the Seattle Mariners. How in the world are the Seattle Mariners with a winning record at the end of the first half and still in mathematical contention for the second wild card spot? How is that even possible? You may be wondering. Well, let's talk about J.P. Crawford. He has a 2.79 ERA. Their home run leader is Mitch Haniger. I've never heard of this guy before. But he's leading the Mariners in home runs. You got Kyle Seager, who has 16 home runs. So let's take a look at the pitching. See who has the best record on the Mariners. So it's Chris Flexen. He has the best record on the Mariners. I mean, this is a mediocre team, but if they can somehow stay in the hunt, that'd be surprising. You know what's embarrassing? James Paxton used to be a Mariner. He's back on his former team. And somehow, he only has one start. How is that possible? I guess we can figure out that on another time. Moving on to the National League. So, right now, this is a division that is still to be determined. I will say, the New York Mets have lived up to their expectations. However, Edwin Diaz was having a pretty good first half. The closing pitcher until recently. He hasn't really been that reliable that much. In fact, today he blew a save against Pittsburgh. How do you blow a save against the Pirates at home? How? And they had a 5-0 lead today. So, the Mets, 3-game lead. I would be a little bit too worried if I were a Met fan right now, because you don't know if the Phillies and the Braves are still going to hang around. They can be hot one day and the next, I don't know. But the Braves took a big hit because they lost one of their big sluggers, Ronald Acuna Jr. Now, as far as the Mets situation, Pete Alonso is leading the team in home runs. So we're going to find out who leads the Mets in average. I just want to see who leads the Mets in average, because we know about Jacob deGrom. We'll get to him later on in the mean stats category. And deGrom is definitely in contention for another Cy Young. It's not out of the question, the way he's been pitching. So we'll take a look at the Mets. I just want to take a look at their leader in average. I just want to see who leads the team in average. Oh, okay, so not too bad. Brandon Nimmo leads the team in average. But he hasn't played that many games because he has dealt with some injury issues. So we'll just assume that Dominic Smith has been the best guy on the Mets. And you know why I say Dominic Smith? This guy is so underrated. This guy is somebody who should be valued, but he's not. The fans like him. I certainly view him as a good player. But I think out of all the people on the Mets who need to get their act together, and I know I'm making sharp criticism here, it needs to be Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil needs to have a good second half. I think there's a lot of pressure for him to have a good second half. I think he needs to get on base more. I think he needs to get a couple more RBIs, because right now his RBI counter only has 14 RBIs this year. I'm like, this is a guy who was a beast 2 years ago. Remember in 2019, this guy was literally a beast. Like, everybody was keeping an eye on Jeff McNeil 2 years ago. I certainly was. And Jeff McNeil needs to have a good second half. That's just the way I view it. But Dominic Smith, I think he's going to keep up his good second half. I think he will. I really think he will. And as far as Pete Alonso, I don't know about that home run derby. I mean, we'll see what happens. But I will say, good for Tajon Walker that he's going to be in the All-Star game. I think he definitely deserved it. He's the second best pitcher on the Mets. He's the second best outside of Jacob deGrom. So he deserved it. And I can respect that Jacob deGrom wants to take the All-Star break off. You know, it's the right thing to do. He's had some injury issues, and he just doesn't want to risk it right now. And I think he's thinking long term. He's likely thinking, hey, you know, we need to focus on winning our first division in 6 years, and we need to keep that in the focus. Definitely no question on that. Moving on to the National League Central. This has been a very, very odd division this year. The Cubs had a very good first half, and then something slipped in late June, early July for them. And I just don't know what happened. They were losing a lot of their games. Surprisingly, the Brewers have been in open discussion, but hold on a minute, folks. The Cincinnati Reds do not, and I'm going to say this loud and clear, do not count the Reds out. I'm not going to go into the situations of the Brewers or the Reds too much, but let's just take a look at their, my bad. Let's just take a look at their leaders. Not going to be too long about it. So let's take a look at the Brewers. Now, you would think Christian Yelich would be having a good season. Wrong. He's actually not doing so well this year. Surprisingly, their catcher has been the best hitter, Omar Narvaez. He has a 306 average. Avisail Garcia has 16 home runs, so that's not too bad in terms of that spot. But seriously, Christian Yelich, what is going on with him? So I'm just trying to see their home run leader. Yeah, it's Garcia. I don't know. I just don't see the Brewers being consistent. They've gotten lucky. I don't know how they got lucky in the first half. They probably saw the Cubs being a weaker team. The Cubs are much better than they are. I just don't know how they were losing all those games. Not what you would expect. Brandon Woodruff's had a pretty good first half. 7-4 record, 2.10 ERA. Corbin Blues, he's been alright. Could be worse for the Brewers. But the Reds would still be the talk of the town if their best pitcher didn't go to the Dodgers. And by the way, Trevor Bauer is in a little bit of trouble with the law. We're not going to get into that. But taking a look at the roster for the Reds, as you can see here. Oops, my bad. Meant to look at the stats. So here we go. Arejo Lopez, 333 average. Nick Castellanos. This is somebody who I believe in a lot. Jesse Winkler's had a good first half. 19 home runs. I mean, I like Castellanos as a player. I think he's really good. But the issue is going to be is that Joey Votto, he needs to have a good second half. I'm telling you right now, folks, it's not just Jeff McNeil who needs to have a good second half in the National League. It's Joey Votto who needs to have a good second half. He needs to get on base more. He needs to get more RBIs. Because it's possible in the second half he can get hot. But don't count the Reds out. I would say if the Brewers collapse, don't count them out. And plus, you still got Mike Moustakas. He needs to have a good second half too. So that's definitely possible. So who's the best pitcher on the team? Just want to see. Who is their best pitcher? Oh, Wade Miley's had a good first half. 7-4 record with a 2.80 ERA. So that's not too bad. Sonny Gray. See, if Trevor Bauer was still on this roster, I would say the Reds still have a chance. But Tyler Mahle. Wow, that's pretty good. So I would say again, don't count the Reds out. But Luis Castillo, what happened to him? He needs to shake it up in the second half. I mean, are the Reds going to give him a chance? Okay. Last but not least, the National League West. What do I gotta say about this division is just something very interesting has happened. I don't know how in the world the San Francisco Giants doing. How in the world are they competing at this type of level? They were supposed to be a last place team next to the Diamondbacks, next to the Rockies. I don't know how in the world are they winning all these games. We're going to have to find out. How are the San Francisco Giants winning all these games? I'm just surprised. So, let's take a look at their roster. And believe it or not, Buster Posey has reemerged himself. The old Buster Posey, who would be reliable, is back. He's leading the whole team in average. Then you got Brandon Crawford at shortstop. He has 18 home runs. Evan Longoria is going to have to step it up in the second half. That is surprising. And then Wilmer Flores, he's done okay. He could be worse, but remember Wilmer Flores, he used to be very reliable on the Mets. How do you think the Mets got to the World Series in 2015? It was because of him, especially late in the second half. That magic carpet ride for the Mets really began then. And then Mike Tauchman, former New York Yankee, is on here. How does Mike Tauchman end up on this team? Baseball, right? So, you got Kevin Guzman, who has an 8-3 record. He has a 1.74 ERA. Kevin Guzman is close to Jacob deGrom type numbers in a sense. Then you got Anthony DeStefani, 10-3 record, 2.68 ERA. So, wonder how this is going to help the Giants. Wonder how. Not going to go too much into the Dodgers or the Padres, but let's just take a look and see what their leaders are. So let's take a look at the Padres, and let's take a look at the Dodgers. So first up with the Dodgers, who is leading the team in average? Right now, their leader in average is Justin Turner. So Justin Turner is still doing okay. It's 15 home runs. I think right now their home run leader is Max Muncy. Yeah, Max Muncy is their home run leader. Who is leading the team in wins? Who's leading the team in ERA? Let's find out. Just going to find out. Okay. So Walker Buehler has a 9-1 record, 2.36 ERA. See, Walker Buehler has been a reliable guy for the Dodgers over the years. He has. Speaking of Trevor Bauer, he's 8-5 with a 2.59 ERA. David Price really hasn't pitched that much because of injury problems. Let's take a look at Clayton Kershaw. So Kershaw has a 9-7 record, 3.39 ERA. Julio Urias has had a good first half, 11-3. Okay, so that's not too bad. And then let's take a look at the Padres. The Padres are going to be around in the second half. They will definitely keep winning. As long as they stay consistent, you need Tati to still be consistent. Ivan Castillo, that doesn't count. That does not count. You look at the current roster, and again, Fernando Tatis Jr., he's going to definitely step it up in the second half. He's definitely going to get above 300 for his average. So he has 28 home runs. So let's see here. Yeah, so Fernando Tatis Jr. is having a very good first half. No surprise there. I would say all the pressure is going to have to be on Machado, because Machado can get hot at the right moment. If Machado can hit 15 more home runs, Machado was a guy who averages 30 home runs a year anyway, so you want to see that. He's definitely going to get 100 runs batted in this year. Hosmer's having a good first half. Pham's having a good first half. Will Myers is going to have to step it up in the second half, but we'll see what happens. So that's how things look in Major League Baseball in terms of teams. Again, right now when I look at all these divisions, I would say the East is not over, not just yet in terms of Boston and Tampa. I would say keep an eye out for the American League West. There could be some surprises. And I'm just going to say this right now. I'm praying that Mike Trout's going to come back, because it's all about the Shohei Ohtani show. And we'll get into that in just a second. As far as National League, again, I would say it It's not over yet. The Mets are going to have a lot of work to do in the second half to keep their lead. And I'm just going to say this right now. If Diaz keeps blowing games, they're going to have to put Jerry's Familia back as their closer. Because I just don't see, if Edwin Diaz is blowing games again, that's going to be a problem. Central, I would say keep an eye on the Reds. I would say if the Reds, especially because think about this, the Reds swept the Brewers this weekend. Keep that in mind. So the Reds still have a chance. I would say don't count the Reds out yet. So the Central is TBD. I would say don't give up on the division lead, especially because the Brewers lost 2 out of 3 to the Mets. So they've had a very bad end of their first half. As far as the West is concerned, I would say it's going to be a battle between the Dodgers and the Giants. I would say there's nothing that's going to let up with the Giants. They somehow know how to win games. The Dodgers are going to be up there. I would say for the Padres, their best bet is to just sneak in as the second wild card, because it's going to be very interesting, to say the least. Very interesting. And plus, we're leading the second half off with Yankees versus Red Sox. All right, so let's get into our leaders, stat-wise. Batting average in the American League goes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with a 337 average. National League goes to Nick Castellanos with a 330 average. Home runs. Shohei Ohtani, 33 home runs. National League goes to Fernando Tatis Jr., who is on pace for 45 home runs. I would say so. RBIs. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So let's see. I just want to see who leads the National League in RBIs. Let's see. Who leads the National League in RBIs? Okay, so the National League leader is Adam Duvall of the Marlins. Right here. Adam Duvall. That's him. See? Adam Duvall has 62 RBIs. So, going back now to the pitching. I want to go to pitching. So, in terms of pitching, Jacob deGrom is leading all pitchers in ERA with a 1.08 ERA. I would think that he's likely going to pitch Friday against the Pirates. He did not pitch the regular season finale today, which made sense because he is enjoying his time off. It's understandable. The American League leader in ERA goes to Lance Lynn. Who's the wins leader? Doesn't even say who leads the... here we go. Okay. We are having an issue trying to load Kyle Hendricks' picture, so let's see if that gets loaded up. Okay, there we go. We have Kyle Hendricks' picture. So, in terms of wins, right now you have Kyle Hendricks with 11 wins for the Cubs, tied with Julio Urias. The American League, you have Aaron Cheval with 10 wins. And I'm just going to say this right now. Keep an eye out for Anthony DiStefani, because he's going to have a killer second half. If he doesn't, I would be very surprised. Because the Dodgers and the Giants battling it out for the division is going to be very fun to keep an eye on. It's always neck and neck between those North versus South battle of California. Okay, so strikeouts goes to Garrett Cole. 147 strikeouts in the American League. Jacob deGrom leads the National League in strikeouts. So, deGrom is likely going to end up getting strikeouts and ERA if he gets the Cy Young. And then walks and hits per inning. This is a very important stat. If DeGrom can keep this stat here, he's definitely going to win the Cy Young. But if I were to give my awards for the first half, I would say American League MVP would go to, I would say, Vlad Guerrero Jr., just because he's leading the American League in batting average and runs batted in. National League, I would say it's a close tie for me between Nick Castellanos and Fernando Tatis Jr. Now, if Acuna was not injured, then he'd be up in discussion. Schwarber, I don't know if he's going to come back in the second half. So I would say Castellanos would be my National League MVP right now. In terms of the Cy Young, obviously, I give it to Jacob deGrom. In terms of wins, I would say it's a tight battle for me between Garrett Cole and Aaron Cheval. I would say that's too close, and maybe Lance Lynn. So I would say right now, maybe the Cy Young goes to Garrett Cole. Depends if he can keep his strikeout lead. So AL Cy Young goes to Garrett. NL Cy Young, obviously, deGrom. So with that, we are going to wrap everything up. 30 and a half plus minutes of me talking about how the first half ended up. So again, I'm going to say this very carefully. If you're looking out for a team in all of baseball to keep an eye on, will be the Reds. I would say in the American League, don't count the Indians out yet. They're your safe bet to keep an eye on. But I would say maybe also the Yankees. Just, that's the way I look at it for the end of the first half. So with that, thank you all very much for watching. Until the next one, please take care. And more importantly, enjoy the Home Run Derby and enjoy the All-Star game. And let's see how the second half plays out. So, bye everyone.